Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to be picking up today where we left off with the Nighthaunts, talking about ghostly processions. For battle, the spectral hosts of wraith creatures are organized by order of Nagash. Beneath the overall command of Lady Olinder, the Mortarch of Grief, the Nighthaunt processions are sent forth to wreak havoc as the vanguard of the great necromancer's deathly forces. Nighthaunts have always been wayward spirits, prone to following their own thirst for revenge. Only when ensnared by a more powerful being, such as Nagash, a Mortarch, soul-blight vampire, or necromancer, do the ethereal creatures submit to following another's lead. But now even the most isolated have been enthralled to Lady Olinder, the Mortarch of Grief. At her summons, the specters muster, answering a siren call that promises vengeance against the living. Lady Olinder organizes the massed phantasmal hordes, breaking them down into hard-striking and distinct armies. On the most vital campaigns, Lady Olinder leads her own Nighthaunt procession, often accompanied by her spectral consort, Kurdos Valentian. More frequently, however, a procession is commanded by a Knight of Shrouds. There are notable exceptions, as powerful spirits are sometimes given generalship over a wraith host. Infamous examples of such individuals are Reikenor the Grim Hailer and the Cairn King Angrim, both of whom are often known to command their own armies. Although Kurdos Valentian is sometimes sent on missions away from Lady Olinder's side, he is never the commander, another of Nagash's cruel ironies. A Nighthaunt procession draws much of its character from its commander. For instance, the most rage-filled or bloody-handed of generals invigorate their minions and charge forward in quick-strike fashion. More gloom-ridden doom-bringers prefer to pin the foe in place, eroding their will with waves of desolation before hurling in elite reserve forces to finally break the enemy. Beneath a procession's commander are any number of captains, Dreadblade Harrows, Spirit Torments, Cairn Wraiths, Lord Executioners, Doom Banshees, and Guardians of Souls. These potent spirits are used to lead assaults or to unleash potent attacks upon the foe. A few such specters have achieved notoriety, such as the Briar Queen of Shade Spire, and the Knight of Shrouds, Sir Morwort Blackheart, who is always accompanied by a trio of Lord Executioners. Some commanders use their captains as bodyguards, while others prefer a Shroud Guard, a circle of Bladegeist revenants, bound by magical oaths to protect their liege at all costs. most Nighthaunt processions are drawn from the ethereal rank and file. Less powerful but more numerous spirits like chain rasps and glaive wraith stalkers. These are grouped together and are typically led by one of the wraith captains. Such formations have different strengths and are usually deployed with specific purposes in mind by their commanders. A chain guard comprises large numbers of chain rasps under the control of a guardian of souls. These hosts are often used as the center of a Nighthaunt battle line, or for holding up powerful enemies. Even as the chain rasps are destroyed, the Guardian of Souls uses its magic to reform them, creating an anvil upon which many foes break. Other groupings of Nighthaunts include the Death Stalkers, hunting forces tasked with seeking out and destroying particular enemies, and the Condemned, chain rasps and chain ghasts, driven mercilessly into the enemy by a spirit torment. Such ragged multitudes are less concerned with holding up the foe, more with slaying them. Other Nighthaunt formations are fewer in number but made up of more powerful spirits. The Shrieker host is such a gathering. Led by a Doom Banshee, it is composed of Dread Scythe Harridans and Miremorn Banshees. Ideally, such a force drifts towards the battlefront while the enemy is engaged. Just as the Doom Banshee unleashes her hellish shriek, the Dread Scythe Harridans sweep in to unleash their fury. The Miremorn Banshees devour enemy spells, while adding their own chill daggers to the fray. Few foes survive the charge of a Shrieker host, but those that do soon find their will to fight failing beneath its horrible cacophony. When a spectral cavalry ride to battle alongside a black coach, they are collectively known as Death Riders. These fast-moving contingents are ideal for smashing apart the flanks of the enemy army and for launching sudden attacks. An execution horde, meanwhile, concentrates a great deal of power into a compact force. Its constituent spirit hosts, and the Lord Executioner that leads them, are able to maneuver between larger formations before closing in to deliver the killing blow. As per Nagash's command, Lady Olinder sends forth her processions as quickly as she forms them. Those that meet with success are given new tasks by the Mortarch, while those that fail are summoned back to Nagashizar. There, the merciless Lady Olinder breaks the spectral host apart and reassigns its various spirits to different armies, resulting in a variety of compositions between the processions. Some remain homogeneous, for they are formed from spirits gathered from the same locale, like the hoarfrost-covered wraiths from Hell's Point that glow with a cold light, or the Blood Mavens, a force dominated by Dread Scythe Harridans, known for their crimson locks. Other processions are more disparate. Each battalion or unit draws from different underworlds, or even from other realms. Under the rule of Lady Olinder, and driven by her fierce demand for victory, victory, many processions have already garnered a fell reputation. The strangely lambent, glowing host from the glittering marsh field an inordinate number of tomb banshees, and have proved unstoppable in their many attacks upon the chaos forces in Sheesh. The vast chain-guard host from the fallen lands of Viniculum do not simply defeat enemy armies, they overrun entire populations. The Reaver host hail from martial stock, for they come from the underworld reserved for the finest knights of old Dolorum. It is said when the moonlight strikes them at the right angle, a pale and ghostly hint of the livery they wore in life can still be seen. Sana knew the end was near. Every rasping breath she drew pained her. As the village healer, she had done all she could with her knowledge of herbs to ease the agony of her passing. Now there was nothing to do but wait, and Sana was ready. She had outlived her husband, and her frail form no longer worked as it used to. She hoped to soon be reunited with her love, for such was the belief of her people, that the worthy would be gifted an afterlife with other goodly souls. She knew nothing about Nagash's curse on healers. When next she opened her eyes, all the warmth of the world was gone. She now floated like mist, her hands replaced with reaping scythes. In a dreamlike state, Sana watched her new, horrible form commit the worst atrocities. A rage beyond her control, driving her to attack all that still lived. Lady Olinder, more dark of grief. Nagash sought everywhere for a commander to lead his newly risen Nighthaunts, and found none more terrible than Lady Olinder of Dolorum. As the newly appointed Mordarch of Grief, it is she that rules the spiritual hosts that seek to establish a reign of terror across the mortal realms. She is the mourning bride, the unrequited queen, the veiled lady, and the Mordarch of Grief. She is despair made manifest, gloom given form. She is Lady Olinder, and in her ark bound all the sorrows and anguishes of the realms. Each of Nagash's Mordarchs has been anointed with a portion of the great necromancer's vast power. To Lady Olinder, who feigned sorrow in life, he gifted a mantle of misery. She now felt all the woes of the mortal realms, becoming a weaponization of grief itself. Her power transcends the melancholic, for she exudes mind-crippling waves of purest desolation. Mortals in her presence are overwhelmed by a gloom so heavy that only the strongest willed can remain upright. Most fall to their knees, mentally battered by their own utter hopelessness. It is a sorrow and regret potent enough to cause a mother to forsake her child, a warrior to lay down his sword and accept the inevitable, to stop a beating heart. Lady Olinder hovers above the ground, attended by her bridesmaids, a pair of banshee handmaidens. As she advances, the thorny vines of grave roses instantaneously sprout before her, their flowers rapidly blooming and dying in order to lay a path of fallen petals beneath her floating form. In her hands, the veiled lady wields the Staff of Midnight, an ornate stave topped with a polished gemstone of vitrified grave sand. The lightest touch of this staff is enough to wither a mighty oak, or kill a grown man outright. Yet it is not Lady Olinder's deadliest weapon. In addition to being surrounded by an aura of absolute misery, Lady Olinder is also a powerful sorceress. With her incantations, she can direct a ball of despair to weigh upon her foes, slowing them like some unholy lodestone. Those afflicted suffer a mental burden so dire it causes even the bravest to tremble, their martial prowess lessened by leaden limbs and despondency beyond any hope of redemption. In the midst of this bleak atmosphere she has created, Olinder presses forward, her banshee bridesmaids shrieking a wail of the damned, while slashing with spectral talons at foes who draw close. One bridesmaid bears an ensorcelled grave sand hourglass, a gift from Nagash, that can be smashed asunder with lethal effect. Yet Lady Olinder has another, even deadlier weapon. From behind her thin shroud, the sunken eyes of the Mortarch of Grief fixate upon a foe. Deliberately she pivots to face them, before slowly and solemnly lifting her veil. What horrors they see are unknown, for none have yet lived to tell the tale. So does Lady Olinder conquer, leading the four of Nagash's invasion in order to bring a new age of eternal death over the mortal realms. Do not resist. Death is inevitable. The more quickly you succumb, the sooner your suffering will be over. Come to me, and be mine forevermore. Kurdos Valentian, the Graven King. The dire presence of Kurdos Valentian is announced by dirgeful trumpets and grim proclamations of his basest deeds. The Graven King sits silent and motionless upon his drifting throne until he closes with the enemy, and then he wields the sepulchral specter to deadly effect, mercilessly slaying all whom his queen bids. Sepulchral scepter, not specter. Nagash needed an appropriate lieutenant to serve his newly crowned Mortarch of Grief. Kurdos Valentian proved an especially fitting choice. The king provided Lady Olinder with a fearsome bodyguard and a tactically minded advisor, and their cold betrothal was cruelly pleasing to Nagash. In life, Kurdos had a ruthless desire to rule, and many were his wicked deeds to claim power, including the assassination of allies, the betrayal of entire armies, and the murder of his own brothers. Just as Kurdos took up the fallen crown of his last sibling, Nagash claimed his soul. Unlike his brothers, Kurdos did not worship Nagash, but instead had chosen the god king Sigmar as his patron, reason enough to draw the great necromancer's ire. Even as a wraith in the spirit world, Kurdos's relentless ambitions saw him rise. Nagash was impressed with the Craven King's resourcefulness and fighting skill, yet it was not his desire to see Kurdos claim rule over an underworld nation. The great necromancer whisked Kurdos away from the afterlife kingdom he was usurping for his own, instead granting him a touch from Alakanash, the Staff of Power. In doing so, Nagash bestowed upon Kurdos great might, yet also an accompanying curse. Nagash ensured that Kurdos's ultimate dream of rule was realized in name only, for he was betrothed to Lady Olinder, fated to always follow her lead. Indeed, Kurdos became little more than a strong man, a bitter jest to be so close to all he desired, yet so far away. Kurdos bears several symbols of his new office, including the throne he aspired to sit in life. He also carries the sepulchral scepter, a weapon that in Kurdos's hands can split rock or crack open a Gargant's skull. Kurdos utters not a word as he hovers upon his throne. Only when he wishes to smite the foe does he deign to move from his despondent posture. The same cannot be said for his spectral attendants. These are the spirits of two, who Kurdos betrayed and supplanted as part of his bloody path to commandeer rule. Now the heralds are fated to serve him eternally and announce his many triumphs. However, they take cruel glee in declaring his defamatory titles. The usurper, false lord, and craven king, and interjecting with boasts of the many ignoble deeds that marked his quest for power. Once forceful and commanding, Kurdos Valentian's curse prevents him from speaking in anything more than a whisper. Gone are his days of booming orders and taking charge. When prudent, he issues tactical advice, garnered from his many victories upon the field of battle. But when he attempts to say more, nothing but the dust of ages issues from his mouth. An aura of bitterness exudes from Kurdos, so powerful that it can choke enemy captains and generals, even as they seek to issue their own orders. The words, foundering and dying, upon their trembling lips. Reikenor, the Grim Ailer. Once a sorcerer king, rich in the knowledge of amethyst magic, Reikenor ran afoul of Nagash. Now, in undeath, the Grim Ailer is cursed to serve the great necromancer, acting as his chief reaper of souls. There are few sights more ominous than the macabre wraith wizard atop his winged steed, lit by the eerie light of his corpse candles. In Shyish, Reikenor is known by many names: the Grim Ailer, the Reaper Wraith, and the Storm Rider among them. Sorcerer, Master of Terror, Reaper of Souls, Fell Lieutenant of Nagash. Reikenor is all these things and more. Much of Reikenor's origins are mysterious, lost to time, but what is known is that he was once a learned sorcerer king who sought to overcome death. Through the magic of Hysh, harnessing the very light of reason, Reikenor worked towards preventing all mortality. His quest for knowledge on the subject was all-consuming, and he attracted many acolytes and followers. Eventually, Reikenor's attempts to unbind the workings of death drew the ire of Nagash himself. In the afterlife, the Grim Ailer still hunts, but now he does so in the name of Nagash. His quarry is no longer eldritch secrets of mortality. Instead, he seeks those who transgress against his master. Through his arcane powers, Reikenor can sense those that withhold souls from Nagash, tamper with his necromantic rituals, desecrate his monuments, or commit any other sacrilegious act. Those who are not in service to Nagash but pursue necromantic knowledge are especially targeted. Upon detecting blasphemies, Reikenor swoops down upon his winged steed, shrieking the syllables of powerful hexes, whilst dealing sweeping blows with his scythe, Fell Reaper. However, even those Reikenor slays in battle, he is not finished with. For such unfortunates, he has further torments in store. Through his incantations, Reikenor can summon a wraith storm, a cyclone of amethyst magic that stirs those souls recently separated from their bodies. Inspired by Nagash's desire to see grim justice meted out upon those that offer him insult or rebel against his wishes, Reikenor's spell incites the departed spirits to savagely attack their former comrades. The spell creates a spectral hurricane in which wraith-like phantoms hack and pull down the living. Thus is a dark vengeance delivered on those that would thwart Nagash. To aid Reikenor in his appointed task, Nagash has bound to him Kilaron, a fierce-winged nightmare. Mounted on the undead steed's head armor are a grim assortment of corpse candles. They are a unique mix of tallow, rendered from Reikenor's former apprentices, along with a grave sand mix. Indeed, after his soul was claimed by Nagash, it was the Grim Ailer's own disciples that were his first target. They too were blasphemers, and Nagash deemed their fate fitting. By snuffing out the flame of a corpse candle, Reikenor can end the life of a nearby mortal, or siphon off a portion of his own essence. Either way, by doing so, he creates a surge of arcane force to empower his enchantments. The Grim Ailer is now condemned to kill forever, and that he must extinguish light and create darkness to do so is a cruel twist that Nagash holds as one of his most just punishments. Prior to the Shyish necroquake, Reikenor often hunted the mortal realms on his own. following the rise of Lady Olinder, the Wraith Wizard has joined the Nighthaunts, leading processions on her behalf, or following missions set by the Mortarch of Grief. So is his power greater than ever before. And so is this video over. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.